Very excited to hear our third talk from Faye and Zenon, and from a company that I'm a bit of a fanboy of as well. So I will hand over to you. I'm very grateful. So there we go. Hope everyone enjoys the talk.
Hello.
All right, good. Yes, we're from Armakuni, and we are a tech consultancy specialising in cloud-native practices. And we're going to talk to you about product mindset and user-centricity. Boom. So I'm Faye. I'm a product consultant and delivery consultant, and I used to be the head of products at Hannick and Parkinson's UK, and I'm a cat.
So I'm Zenon and Hannick. I'm a consulting CTO at Armakuni. I have been in tech for about 20 years. I was formerly CTO at Comic Relief, where I worked with Faye. The past 5 years, I've been working for Armakuni, and my specialism is like helping organisations with kind of cultural, technical, and socio-technical, which is the latest buzzword, challenges, and I'll just say complex adaptive systems, just to feel like
Bingo.
Yeah. Having moved to the UK as a teenager 5 months ago, I got my first pet, and I feel that that has meant that I'm fully now an Englishman. I've adopted things, I walk down the road, talk to it. If people don't, as they walk past, don't tell me how beautiful it is, I get seriously offended. I also would like to suggest that as we're looking for a logo, platform as a product stands, we shorten it to PAP. This is a pup. So then you can now tell the quality of jokes that you'll be having.
Moving on. So, thank you, Zenon. So, a product mindset and product practices are key to delivering planful and usable platforms, as we've heard tonight. So, in the other presentations we've had, you can start to get a sense of the wealth of information that's out there, the breadth and depth of product, and how you might apply it to delivering platforms. And what is key is the product mindset. So we're going to share some practices that we've used, some common problems that we come across with our clients, and how we've overcome them. And there's one part of product thinking that we really want to focus on, which we think is the most important thing to do and to bear in mind as you move forward on your product journey.
I really wish we knew there was a mic when we started doing this. We would have divided slides up very differently. So if you remember only one thing, it's not after 8 minutes, even though these will be important and you'll find out later why. It comes down to this thing. Be user-centric. So the key point about user-centricity is that your platform will need to evolve, and your platform needs to evolve to meet the emergent needs of your organization. And those needs are going to emerge for your users. So you have to put your users at the center of your thinking. Otherwise, you will not build the right thing and it will not get used. By emergent, we mean the sort of reality that happens as to what the needs of the platform are. And that emerges from the actual use and the way that not only your users are going to use it, but the way that you as a team are developing the platform.
So being user-centric starts with knowing your users, and it sounds kind of obvious, but we are consistently amazed by the number of organizations and companies we work with where it's just platforms are being built, as Kat and Ed mentioned, in isolation, for the engineers. But what does that actually mean in practice? Or for the so-and-so team, or for the whoever it is on the other side of the fence. And it's really a missed opportunity. So by knowing who your users are, we mean finding out who they are, meeting them, speaking to them, really importantly, listening to them, and establishing regular communication and feedback sessions so that you can continue to speak and listen and learn from them. Also making it clear how they can communicate with you, and making sure that you make yourself available to them as well. So once you know who your users are and you've identified them, and connected with them, you can start to understand their needs. So it's really important to try and understand what their pain points are. How are they using their existing tools? How do they work day to day? What does success look like for them, as Kat was saying? And how does work flow through their team? How does value flow through their work to their end users? And what does this platform that you're striving to build for them and provide for them, how does that fit into that flow of value? So by by taking this as your starting point, you're setting yourself up to build a platform that people will love to use, and a platform that remains relevant, because you're then having that consistent communication, consistently learning and listening, throughout the life of that platform. So what's in it for you? Why should you bother doing all of this? At some level, I believe we are all driven to contribute to something that's meaningful, to build something that's meaningful and something that matters. So by creating a platform that's easy to use, you can reduce complexity, reduce waste, you can deliver game-changing functionality for people when you actually understand what their needs are. You can improve people's working lives and simplify that end-to-end flow of value. And you can make a big difference to your company and the profitability that's possible within your organisation.
So what are the common problems that we see and that we've observed in organisations when they're building their internal platforms? A couple of people have mentioned this, and it is we will build one platform to rule them all. Every single problem that you have as a developer will go away when we deliver this platform. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be incredible. It's going to manage your infrastructure, it will manage your networks, it will make you tea, bake you a cake, do your tax returns, it's going to do everything, it's going to be amazing. And it sort of comes from that kind of fallacy of the silver bullet. The fallacy, which has two aspects to it. One is that such a thing exists, it will solve all your problems. But the other thing is that at a point in time, you can absolutely know everything that this platform will need to do. And not only that, you can deliver that quickly enough for that point in time not to change, which, as we all know, is completely unreal. It also can come from, and this is a bit weird talking at this meetup, coming from jumping on the sort of platform engineering kind of hype train. Everyone's talking about platform engineering now. Used to be DevOps, platform engineering is the new DevOps, which was the new Agile. And so it's kind of quite easy that you take that sort of approach. And then that leads down the path of being a technology-led solution. We've talked about this a lot. We build some technology, build it, they will come. It takes multiple months to build it. It takes a long while. Once it lands, no one actually cares, because in the meantime, teams need to get stuff done and they want to get stuff done, so they just go and build workarounds. They do it themselves. They build their own little platforms. They get the credit card out, as other people have talked about. So this whole build it and they will come thing just doesn't work, and it comes from this idea of having really no concern for your end users. I'm building great technology, so therefore someone will use it. It's just not an approach that you need to take. So the other key thing is that it's built on assumptions. I'm here all night. I'll be doing my 5 minutes after the show as well. So often they're built on assumptions of what the engineers actually want, what developers actually need in order to get stuff done. And so what typically happens is that you make all these assumptions, and off the back of those assumptions, you don't care about your users, but most importantly, you don't care about the work they're actually doing and how they do that work. Without understanding that, and as Faye talked about, as others have talked about, understanding the place this platform needs to take in the whole value chain, and the whole flow of value through your organization. And when you start taking that flow-based approach to your organization, how value flows, you start thinking about what the platform needs to do slightly differently. So then you just think on, I've got X technology and it's going to deliver Y features, and then you start building that massive backlog of features. And then you start thinking, right, I've got brilliant backlog of features. That's amazing. You've not empathized with your users, as Kat was talking about. You've not understood their pain. You've not understood what they're trying to achieve. You just thought, I'll build these features and they will solve the problems. And then you get into the position. I don't know why I did the laptop and I've got a clicker in my hand, but there you go. You're in the position of like just being in that feature factory of outputs. You get your backlog, you build it into a roadmap, you start, the executive board will see the kind of highlights of your roadmap, and you start just churning stuff out. You're building this stuff. You forget about the why you're building it. You forget about the value you're trying to deliver to your organization. You're just delivering outputs. You fall behind in your roadmap. You start delivering quicker. You start cutting corners. And then you come to the end. There's no feedback loop to the users. You deliver it. No one uses it. Or you're in a type of organization where people are forced to use it. And then they hate you. They drag their feet, they hate you, they stop inviting you to lunch, you don't get any Christmas cards, it just goes further and further wrong. And because of time pressures, they've not really done any documentation. So there's a couple of wiki pages here, there's an email there, There's some other kind of source of information. There's some readmes in some repository you don't even know about, and it just becomes a massive pain to actually even use the platform. And then the reality is that you need to know that one person in the team who can tell you the shortcuts and tell you how to do it, and they're burnt out because they spent ages building this platform that no one likes. They don't get any Christmas cards to fill them up, and they just feel terrible about everything. So we worked with a financial services client, and their data services and team really sought to understand what their users were doing. They built a platform that responded to their needs. They built a really small thing, which is just like, but the thing that it did is it baked in all of the things they needed to care about. It baked in the governance rules of the organization. It baked in kind of backup policy. So you as a developer didn't need to worry about those things. And ultimately, the important thing, Kat talked about it a lot, that kind of cognitive overhead. The purpose of the platform is to build something so that other people don't have to think about certain stuff. So they can just do their job, focus their efforts on the things that matter, on the value that they need to deliver. How many people have heard of the concept of cognitive load? Just so I know whether to. Oh, amazing. So I don't really need to go through explaining that, but it's really expanded a lot in the Team Topologies book. So I don't know, for people who've not read the book or not followed Matthew and Manu online and various other things, it's worth following that because they've got some strong ideas on platforms that are worth considering. So let's cut all of that out because everyone knows about all of that. So if your platform isn't easy to understand and doesn't abstract that complexity, then people are using their cognitive load in order to understand and engage with that, and ultimately they won't use it. So really what it comes down to is thinking about what you can do to reduce the cognitive load of all the people who are going to be using your platform.
All right, so now we know what the common problems are, or at least the ones that we've seen often. Let's talk about product mindset and practices that can help address those problems. Obviously, we have the After 8 mint, which is the cool mint that soothes burning lava fields of Mordor. But before we get on to that, we'll just talk about some tactics. So to tackle assuming that we know what our users want, it's really important to start with user research. So this is essential for building your understanding and your empathy with your users and really building up a bank of evidence that informs you about what they need, and it enables you to make decisions and really to make confident decisions. Because if you don't have that evidence, you are working with assumptions, and you will inevitably build something that doesn't work or meet the people's needs. And so that same team that Zenon mentioned, working with the financial services client, they did just that. Over time, they built up, they figured out who their users were, they connected with them, they asked them questions, they asked them feedback, they generated lots of information and understanding about them, and then they developed some reports which kind of consolidated everything they learned. It enabled them to figure out the bits where they needed to course correct, and then they also completed the feedback loop by sharing back to those users what they'd done with their feedback, how the platform had changed. So that feedback loop was complete, and it meant that those people that were making the effort to tell them about what they needed, etc., and give them the feedback, had the reassurance that they were being listened to, they could see the value of their contribution, and that built trust, and that enabled them to maintain and engage with that group over time. Now we're back to Zenon.
So the other aspect that I think is really, really important is understanding the place of your platform in the value chain. And really, this helps us at assuming what users need, because it's really important that in a lot of organizations we work with, people are quite siloed, and that's necessary in large organizations. You can't know everything about everyone and what they're doing and everything that's going on. But within each silo, they're looking at what part they're responsible for, and that can be really efficient in that, and every single part can be really efficient. But actually, if the whole thing isn't efficient and effective, then you're not really meeting the value that you can. And so there's lots of different ways you can do this. You can do service blueprinting, you can do process mapping, you can do event storming, lots of different techniques. The reason why we like kind of value stream mapping is that it puts the kind of user at the center. It focuses on the flow of value, which I said is really important, and it also can provide some metrics. So for example, if you're building a platform, it takes 10 minutes to kind of spin up your infrastructure. Should you spend a week making that 10 minutes into one, if it's taking the end-to-end flow is 4 weeks for any user to get any product out through their team, is that the best way to do it, or is it best for you to spend effort baking in some governance rules into your platform so that removes a week of kind of manual stuff to get governance approval? So by knowing the end-to-end flow of the whole thing, you can then better understand where's best place to use your time, to use your kind of engineering effort. So really, it's that kind of idea. By knowing where you are, where the platform is, what it needs to achieve, where it sits in the whole scheme, allows you to better target your effort.
And so to tackle the feature factory of outputs, a really good approach is to ensure that your whole team has ownership over your product practices, and that you don't just have your product owner or your product manager being the person that's responsible for ensuring that we operate in a product way. What we've seen often is the anti-pattern of the product manager or the owner writing all the stories and then handing them over to the engineers, and then the engineers looking at those stories and working at a task level, and really crucially missing the why behind why they're doing that work. Why is it important? And so, you know, that means there's a loss of context, a loss of information, a duplication of effort at each of those handover points. And really those stories are of a lower quality, and therefore what you deliver is of a lower quality. So when engineers interact with their users, they're hearing firsthand about their pain points, about their experiences, and about their needs. They're better understanding their needs, empathizing with them more, and then are in a better position to come up with solutions and to have the input and the insight that will produce those quality outputs. It means you have fewer handovers, you have better flow, and you don't have a single point of dependency on your product owner. So we have a team working with a client who did just this. It took quite a few months of effort, of consistent effort, to really build up that practice and build up the norm that meant the team really had ownership over story writing. And it sounds quite simple, but they put a lot of time and energy into it. And what it meant was that they now have a steady stream of work, they have fast flow, and they are not dependent on their product owner. Of course, their product owner still plays a really vital role, but he went off on paternity leave for like 6 months, and that didn't, you know, that didn't hinder them. They were able to continue and achieve what they needed to. So to tackle the build one platform and rule them all, what we find is really helpful for this is about what Zenon mentioned at the beginning. It's about sensing those emergent needs. So when you're able to sense what your users need, then you are able to guide yourselves on what to build and to build the right things. It's about listening and really truly listening to what people need. And that enables you to build the best platform and the best solution. But what's really important is starting with the smallest thing you can build and maintaining that principle of small throughout the life of the platform. And so if you have this mindset of the thinnest viable platform throughout its whole lifetime, it means you're keeping it slim, you're keeping it lightweight, you're avoiding bloat, avoiding unnecessary overheads. And so it's not just about the beginning, it's about the whole journey. So in team topologies, they describe the thinnest viable platform as the smallest set of APIs, documentation, and tools needed to accelerate teams developing modern software systems and services. And it can be as simple and small as a wiki page, especially to get started. And this is why we've been banging on about After 8 Mint. So when I was watching the Team Topologies video about the platform as a product, they were talking about the thinnest viable platform, and all I could think about was wafer thin mint and After 8. And so I bought a box of After 8 I'm going to share around with everyone. And if you only remember After 8, it means you've remembered us, and that's a good thing. So there you go. That's the After 8 reference.
So I think just going back to the thinnest viable platform, I think we had quite an early example of this a number of years ago before we'd even heard this, where we're working with a bank, and they were talking about automating their governance, you know, getting all of their governance rules into Git so that then people could automatically call an API and prove that their platform was meeting all of those things. Quite an ambitious program of work. But what it started with is they got all the governance rules, and there were multiple little places that had governance rules, and they put them into spreadsheets, and then they deduplicated them, did the spreadsheet, and then what they did was they checked the spreadsheet into Git. Teams could then check out the spreadsheet, complete it, check it back into Git, and they built a tool that would then pull that into a centralized place and literally, email someone there was a new thing for them to review. Then they'd look at the review it manually, and then slowly over time, then they started incrementing more and more and more. If they'd gone we're building this thing that's going to automate it end to end, they would have been caught in months and months of work, seeing no value, and they just started iterating that, and through use, they started learning and understanding more. So another way to kind of center an emergent platform is to take an experimental approach. So the best way to kind of manage uncertainty and risk is to do small batch work, to do the smallest thing you can and iterate quickly, and then you're constantly learning. Take an experimental approach allows you to really start thinking about, the why. We believe this capability will result in this outcome. What it's doing is then focusing the mind, well, actually, why are we doing this? What do we think will actually happen? And that's really important, because quite often you get into the mode of where we need to do this thing, we're writing the ticket, no one understands why, no one thinks about what value is, no one thinks about the outcome that you want to achieve, and this sort of forces that. And the third thing is it sort of forces you to think about, well, actually, how will we know if we've been successful? And this often gets forgotten when you're building stuff. We're going to do it because we have to, we've done it, it's out there. How will we know we'll be successful? What metrics are we going to use? And what change in those metrics will we see to know that this is the right thing to do? And so this experimental approach can be really, really powerful. But ultimately, it's about creating those short, small feedback loops so that you know you're going in the right direction. So it's allowing you to course correct. This comes from kind of Barry O'Reilly and about this idea of hypothesis-driven development. We found this is quite a good shortcut, and it's quite an easy, quick way to do that. If you're thinking about larger experiments, there's loads of kind of experiment forms that you can use. We've kind of adapted an open source one that we use, and really the big powerful thing about this, the same with value stream mapping, the same with event sourcing, all of these different techniques you can use, is really about getting information, putting it up on a wall, putting it in a document, and then you can have those really difficult discussions, because it's not me attacking Faye because Faye suggested something and I'm sort of saying that's a really bad idea. It's up there, we can talk about it more openly, it kind of disassociates it from the person, so it enables us to have those really robust discussions, but it also structures you to think about all of the things that are important. What's the metric, what's the data, actually what's a fail condition? If we see this thing happen, we stop, we're gonna introduce this new feature. Oh, it brings down the whole platform. That's quite a good fail condition. We're going to stop doing it. So really think about taking that small step and that experimental approach, and seeing, when you start seeing things as an experiment, it makes it easier to make decisions about what we're going to do. It's a small experiment. Let's try. It's 2 weeks of effort. It's a week's of effort. It's a day of effort. Let's try that and see if it does what we want. And it optimizes for learning, and learning will drive a better platform.
So our final point is about discoverability and onboarding. And this is really about tackling that end user cognitive load. So if you've thought about how your platform can be discovered and how it can be onboarded, you are therefore reducing the cognitive load of the users. And so really what this is about is user centricity again. It's important for what you build, but it's also important for how you enable people to find your platform and to use it and get themselves onboarded. So this means internal marketing. It means lunch and learns, roadshows. It means finding out how people feel and promoting your platform, and doing that stuff that maybe we're not that comfortable with, but is really important for your platform to succeed. So do not overlook this stage. And yeah, just to share one final example from one of our teams working at a financial services company, they did exactly this. They put just the right level of effort in to make it discoverable. They identified their users. They had a ready-made set of users who were going to be onboarded first, kind of like a safe group, if you like. They got them using the platform. They got some really useful feedback just after they kind of launched it. They were then made some adjustments. They then onboarded some more people, and it really enabled them to succeed. And because they were visible throughout this process, they started getting recognition and acknowledgement from senior management as well. So it was really worth the effort. And so to conclude, the natural law of evolution is that people will choose the path of least resistance. And so really it's about making sure your platform is built in a way to support that. Make your users' life simpler, help them develop quicker, increase the pace of flow and value. And as Evan Botcher says, create the path of least resistance and make the right thing the easiest thing to do, which is very similar to what Kat said. Always, remember, always be user-centric, and that will put you in, that will steer you in the right direction. We've got a handful of resources to share with you, which I'm sure can be distributed. And
Sorry, one more.
thank you for having us.
But just to say, Kat was calling out Abby, her colleague. She gave an amazing talk at the Fast Word conference. This talk, Bring Product Thinking to Your Platform. Really, really good. I'd thoroughly recommend you watching that. Half an hour of your time, really well spent. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Well, deserved round of applause.